Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Once more, InPost's have surprised us with incredible results. To find out the secret sauce behind it, stay tuned. Experience the future of convenience with modern Expo parcel lockers. Cutting-edge innovations that bring parcel delivery to a fundamentally new level. Follow the link in the description to find the best solution for your business. Gary, if Poland is Lockerland, the king, the undisputed king of Lockerland, is InPost.
Without a doubt. What an organisation, eh?
Have you seen the latest results?
I don't know whether to laugh or cry when I read them, because obviously they're a massive competitor in many markets for us, but you can't help but admire the progress they've made in the last 12 months.
Well, apparently, despite the fact that this hasn't been the easiest of years, they're up 17% year on year. On one day peak, they did 11 million parcels, and they have more lockers in Poland than Deutsche Post has in Germany. So it's all pretty good stuff. But I thought perhaps you and our viewers might be interested in understanding what's the secret sauce. How did they do it?
I definitely would. But the other thing I would like to say as well is that yes, they are the undisputed kings of Lockerland, without a doubt, but it's the progress they've made internationally as well that really stood out for me. The acquisition of Mondial Relay and hitching their growth engine to a carrier, which has been their stated strategy. And then in the UK as well, the growth that they've finally made, really positive forward momentum in the UK. So I'm going to guess that part of the secret sauce is being the carrier, because obviously it's where they've managed to marry the two together and own, first and last mile, that seems to have made the real difference for them. Unless you're going to tell me I'm a delusional fool and I'm wrong.
It's sort of part of the story. And we should add, by the way, that in Poland, which is the market in which they've really got it right, they are making EBITDA in excess of 40%. I think 43, 44% when I last looked. So it's absolutely incredible. But let's start, if I may, let's start with Poland, because that's where it all kicked off. We had another vlog on Poczta Polska, which is part of the reason for their success. So it typically happens that when the national post is relatively weak, other carriers have an opportunity. If you have a very strong national post, so for example, Germany, Deutsche Post, it's not so easy for somebody else to come in and do what InPost has done. So you had a relatively weak national post. You had competition who didn't get together to create an alternative, and InPost basically just got stronger and stronger. They were very closely aligned to the dominant e-commerce player, Allegro. So basically everything that could go their way did go their way. But, and this is where you're absolutely right, I call it not so much maybe the fact they're a carrier or not, but the end-to-end service. So the people who invariably don't make as much are the guys who do what I call locker, sell, rental. So, for those of you who've not seen China, you've got Hivebox in China, which when I last looked was about 500 million parcel lockers. And they're making very, very little because they just rent the cell. InPost is able to make a killing because they offer an end-to-end service covering in a very efficient manner the full service, selling it at a full service price, not just as a locker rental price, and getting the full economies of scale. So that's where it all started. And that's, Gary, how they get the 40+% EBITDA. And then you're absolutely right. The other thing that didn't work from the beginning, because in the UK and France, you probably know the UK story, it wasn't going too well for many, many years.
10 straight years of losses and no clear strategy was my personal view of where they were a little while ago.
And I must say that although I am actually pretty much aligned with what they're doing in France, although if I remember correctly, in the results, France didn't do quite as well as some of the other regions, but still I think they've got the right strategy. And I think in the long term, it will work, because what they did, they understood in France that the only way that they're going to be relevant and the only way that they're going to be able to make reasonable money is to have coverage, which they couldn't do with even 1,000 or 2,000, I think it was just over 1,000 machines they had in place. buying Mondial Relay, I think, was a real, inspirational move, because Mondial Relay had, at the time, I think 10,000 plus minus Pudo points. You add the lockers to that, you become relevant, you become interesting. And, you know this, Gary, for a long time, I've always said Pudos and lockers are both part of a complete solution. Any one of those on their own isn't. So I think France, we can tick the box. The thing, maybe you got some views because you're UK based, or at least largely UK based still, I think I can say now.
Yeah.
In the UK, initially they didn't have enough machines. They didn't seem to have the right partnerships. It does seem to be going in the right direction. But my concern is that still, on their own, even with the Menzies acquisition, have they got enough to really become relevant?
So, Marek, my question is, what you described there was a unique set of circumstances in Poland where you had many opportunities or many stars that aligned. You had tight integration with Allegra. You had a postal service that perhaps wasn't addressing the e-commerce delivery market to the expectations of its customer base. You had a scenario where this could align. How easy will it be for InPost to recreate that in another market?
Well, and the other thing, Gary, for those who are not aware, and this is a really interesting bit, in the UK, Advent is the controlling shareholder in Every, and Advent was the dominant and controlling shareholder in InPost. It's now still, I think, the largest single shareholder. So I find it quite interesting that the two are not working together. But let's see how it pans out. My feeling is overall the group has incredible results. Poland is probably about as good as it gets, because I don't know about you, but in my 30 plus years in the industry, I've not seen too many large businesses in our industry making in excess of 40% EBITDA margin. And that's on a domestic business with relatively low pricing. So, I'm comfortable with that. I'm also pretty comfortable with France. Let's see how the UK pans out. The only final thing I'd say is let's not be too unfair to Polish Post. I think they had a bit of a difficult, shall we say, series of historic decisions from an ownership perspective. So I think you're a bit tough when you say they're rubbish. I'd say that they've got issues. They're relatively weak. Let's see. There's a new government in place, and we did have another video on that. Let's see where they end up.
Unfortunately, I'm not dependent on Polish Post for many deliveries, so I can be slightly more outspoken than you. But I take your point. That was a little bit harsh. Anyway, it's good to speak to you.
Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.